So if a soldier in the United States Army has some sort of injury that is not serious enough to kick them out of the Army, then they go on what is called a permanent profile, and they still have to complete the Army combat fitness test. They just have some alternate events that they have to do. In this video, we're going to be talking about those alternate events. What is up, my friends? Welcome to an all-new video. In this one, I'm talking about the alternate events of the Army Combat Fitness Test for those individuals in the United States Army that are on what is called a permanent profile. And I'm going to have to explain a little bit of kind of like content to give you some context to what a permanent profile is for those of you that are not in the Army, maybe future soldiers yourself, as I'm aware that if you're currently in the Army, you know what that means. And this first part may not, be necessary to you, but for those of you that are watching this that are future soldiers, you're going to need to know a little context as to what a permanent profile is and how a soldier ends up on a permanent profile. And then I'll get into the alternate events of the Army Combat Fitness Test. But before I do that, make sure you are subscribed to this channel if you're not already. Also hit that little bell so you get notifications when new videos go live, to include the live streams, and join the notification platoon. Let's talk about the alternate events, but first talking about what is a permanent profile. So if a soldier, let's say something happens where maybe they sprained their ankle or some kind of injury happened while they were, doing PT or while they're doing a training exercise, something like that, they may go on what is called a temporary profile. So they have some kind of restrictions to what they can and can't do, and then they have to, have some kind of recovery time frame to try to recover from this injury and then get reevaluated to come off of this temporary profile. There are some times where they don't necessarily come off that temporary profile because it didn't heal properly or it's not going to heal properly, whatever the case might be. And in that circumstance, a soldier may receive what is called a permanent profile. Now, this is usually for some sort of injury that may result in not necessarily that they can't do their Army job anymore, they just have certain little restrictions here or there that they have to kind of abide by. So it's not serious enough for them to get maybe medically chaptered out of the Army or discharged or whatever, but something that, through some limitations, they can still continue to do the Army job and just carry through with this permanent profile for maybe the rest of their Army career or maybe for several years or whatever the case may kind of vary. But a permanent profile is evaluated by those doctors. They determine that, and they determine if it's a permanent profile or if it's something just temporary and all that kind of stuff. So even with the previous PT test, you still had an alternate kind of event that for permanent profiles individuals that they had to do. You still had to do the push-ups, you still had to do probably the sit-ups, but instead of doing the 2-mile run, you had a walk you had to do. So you would walk and you had a different time standard for the time you needed to finish this walk in to be able to pass the test. With this new ACFT and having 6 events, well, some of those events are going to be very difficult for individuals with permanent profiles that doesn't limit them from doing an Army job and doesn't require them to have to get kicked out of the Army. So they have to kind of limit that down to actually 3 events. So for soldiers that are on what is this permanent profile, they have 3 events that they are going to be required to complete. Now, 2 of those 3 events that someone on a permanent profile are going to have to complete are still the same 2 events that other soldiers have to complete. That is the deadlift, that one is still required, and the sprint drag carry. So those ones have the same requirements. You still need to be able to do those 2. If you can't do those 2, then you're probably going to get chaptered out of the Army. But if you can, then those 2 events are what you have to be able to do, and then you have to do some sort of aerobic event. Now they have 3 different aerobic events that you can do. Those 3 aerobic events that will be options for them to do is a stationary bike, a stationary rowing machine, or a swim. Now actually a swim was one of the alternate events for the PT test too, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody get to do the swim as an alternate event. Pretty much the most common one was the 2-mile walk. So let's talk about the standards are to pass those 3 aerobic events for individuals on permanent profile. So with the stationary bike, that is going to require them to do 15,000 meters. On the stationary rowing machine, they will need to do 5,000 meters. And if they're lucky enough to get to do the swim, well, they have to do 1,000 meters. Now the requirement to pass any of those 3 events requires you to do whichever event you're doing, the length you need to do it in 25 minutes or less. And then additionally to that, when you transition from the deadlift to the sprint drag carry, and then you're going to go over to the aerobic event, you need to be doing so in 10 minutes or less. So the rowing machine can't be too far away, or the exercise bike or swimming pool can't be too far away that's going to give you more than a 10-minute rest time between doing that last event before you go off to do that alternate event. So those are the 3 events that are the alternate events that an individual on permanent profile will have to complete. So like I said, you have to do the distance in 25 minutes or less, you have to do a transition over that in less than 10 minutes, and then if they pass the sprint drag carry, the deadlift, and then whichever alternate event they're doing of the aerobic event, then they still pass the Army Combat Fitness Test. So that is the 3 events for the alternate events of the ACFT. So it's definitely much shorter than someone who has to do the 6 events, but this is what someone who is injured to have a permanent profile that doesn't, end up resulting in them getting kicked out of the Army, getting medically chaptered out of the Army. If they can stay in the Army and still continue to do their job, then they still need to do these 3 events though. If they can't do those 3 events, then yes, then it probably does result in medically being chaptered out of the Army. So maybe just a quick video kind of a thing, just to let people know that we're interested about the alternate events of the ACFT, because I've received some questions about that, people wanting to know what were their alternate events, because maybe they're aware of the alternate events for the PT test, the Army APFT, right? So you may have been curious what the ACFT alternate events were for individual and permanent profiles. So just kind of a quick video to kind of inform you. If there's other things you want to know about the ACFT, whatever it may possibly be, if you leave those questions down in the comments section, I'll try to do my best to answer them. Maybe some other viewers watching this can help out. Maybe it can even result in a new topic for another ACFT video in the future. All right, so that's it. That's the ACFT alternate events. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it and it was helpful in some way, hit that thumbs up. I'm Christopher Chaos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. See ya.